Hello class, this will be the final video for section 1.4. We are going to cover the square root expressions. I believe this is on the bottom of page 37. So it said, okay, when we studied exponents, we noticed that 4 squared equals 16 and negative 4 squared is also 16. So we could say that 16 is the square of both 4 and negative 4. So the square root of 16 would be 4 and negative 4. However, for this class, we generally talk about the principal square root or the positive square root. Right? So even though the square root of 16 is 4 and negative 4, we really only deal with just the positive, or the principal square root, which would be the 4. Okay, so in the yellow box here, we have a definition, right? It says if x is a positive real number, then the square root of x represents the positive or principal square root of x. And this symbol is called the radical sign. I know some people call this the square root sign, but it's really called the radical sign because there are other roots we can take, like the third root or the fourth root, and so on. So let's take a look at the next page. You might hear us talk about perfect squares. Those are the values that when we take the square root, we end up with a whole number. So for example, the square root of 81 is 9, right? It's not 9 point something, it's not a decimal. Or the square root of 64 is 8, right? The square root of 49 is 7, and so on, right? We can also have fractions, right? Because if we take 0.5 and square it, we get 0.25. So the square root of 0.25 is 0.5. So let's take a look at some properties here. It says if I have the square root of a times b, that can be rewritten as the square root of a times the square root of b. And the quotient property says if I have the square root of a divided by b, it's equal to the square root of a divided by the square root of b. So let's look at this using some practice problems to see how this can be useful. Right? So for example, the square root of 2 times the square root of 8. Just looking at this, I don't know the answer, but I do know because of that property, I can take the square root of 2 times the square root of 8 and put it under the radical sign. We know 2 times 8 is 16, and the square root of 16 we can do, which is 4. Okay? Or 2 times the square root of 3 can be rewritten as 2 times 2, right, because the 2 is being squared, and the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Well, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is actually the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is 3, right? So the 2 times 2 gives me the 4, and 4 times the square root of 9 is the same as saying 4 times 3, which equals 12, right? So these are some good problems. Let's try some practice ones. Again, the answers to the practice exercises can be found in the back of your book. I'm going to try to just work my way through a few of these, right? So number 16, I am going to rewrite this as the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, which is the same as writing the square root of 25, which we know is 5, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25. Let's try another one. This one has a negative sign in front, so this becomes square root of 5 times square root of 5. Notice the negative sign is on the outside here. It's outside the parentheses, so the negative does not get squared. So you're left with negative square root of 25, which is negative 5. Okay? And now the negative is inside the parentheses. Notice the difference between 17 and 18. First one, negative's on the outside. Now the negative is on the inside. So this is saying negative square root of 5 times negative square root of 5, which would equal, well, negative times a negative is a positive, and 5 times 5 is 25. So here's my final answer. Okay? Let's do one more. So 19 becomes the square root of 25 times the square root, I don't know why I wrote it that way, which equals 5 times 5, which is 25. Right? The square root of 25 times the square root of 25 is the same as 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay? So again, maybe practice a few of these, at at home. The answers to these are in the back of the book. If you have questions with these, let me know, and we'll work through it during a Zoom session. All right? Again, thank you for watching. Oh, before I leave, though, I do want to mention there is a summary on the next page. I do want you to work through this summary. Right? This is a good way to test yourself. Right? Do you really understand the material? And the answers, again, to the summary are on the back of the book as well. Okay? So I would definitely work through some of these. All right. Thank you for watching.